Somewhere between the dopamine haze of story views and the ritual sacrifice of privacy, there exists a species whose defining trait is absence. Their profiles are digital monoliths, a name, a picture, sometimes not even that. In a world that documents everything, the non-posters are mystery, a living error in the algorithm. They are off-grid while being online. You can message them, but you cannot know them. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han wrote that the transparent society abolishes the distance essential for reflection. The non-poster preserves that distance. Ironically, they are often the most interesting people you'll meet, because they are not constantly narrating themselves. They exist unrecorded, and therefore unedited. Their identity doesn't refresh every 24 hours. They are the long exposure photograph in a world of boomerangs. You might think they don't care, but they care deeply, just differently. They know how absurd it is to reduce one's existence to a vertical video. They sense that mystery is not outdated, that privacy is the last romantic gesture. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, they've realized the real power is in being unreadable. Their life unfolds in low resolution, untracked, and therefore unclaimed. Sociologist Irving Goffman describes social life as a stage, each person performing for an imagined audience. But the digital stage never dims. There is no backstage anymore. Only a spotlight that follows you home, into bed, into dreams. The non-poster found the trapdoor. They do not feed on validation metrics. They feed on context, the richness of unrecorded perception. They believe that to experience something fully, one must resist turning it into content. The more we document, the less we metabolize. But make no mistake, the non-poster isn't necessarily a monk of minimalism. Some of them lurk with quiet addiction, scrolling like archaeologists through the lives of others. They witness the endless declarations. My people, my tribe, my era, my soft girl winter, and choose not to add to the noise. Oscar Wilde once said, "To be natural is such a very difficult pose to keep up." The non-poster understands this too well. They're allergic to captions, to the obligation of constant personality. They prefer the barter system, real conversation, private jokes, eye contact not mediated by pixels. They don't dislike technology. They simply refuse to let it eat their soul. It is definitely not superiority as we like to blame them. It's self-defense. They are the ones who text you a meme privately instead of posting it publicly, who see the point of the joke without the need for applause. They are suspicious of the algorithm's psychology. Show me more of what you like, so you never think differently again. They crave friction, the unpredictable encounter, the unfiltered moment, the thing that doesn't fit the feed. When you ask them why they don't post, they'll shrug. They might say, "I don't feel like it," or "I forget." But behind that casual answer lies a subtle philosophy. They reject the compulsion to exist through others' perception. Their life is theirs alone, not a co-authored timeline. And yet, they watch. They scroll. They know the rituals, the linguistic trends, the hashtags, the cycles of irony. They are not ignorant of the culture. They are embedded observers, anthropologists of the performance. They read captions like tea leaves, detecting loneliness behind the smile emoji, fatigue behind the "living my best life" mantra. Their silence is the mirror, held up to our collective noise. Some of them are quietly building empires, writing novels no one knows about, making art in rooms with no Wi-Fi, learning obscure crafts, languages, movements. They live by different temporal rhythms. Social media moves in seconds. They move in seasons. Camus said, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion." In this sense, the non-poster's blank profile picture is a philosophical stance, a refusal to become product, a quiet revolution disguised as indifference. And perhaps that's why they unsettle us. Their absence forces us to question why we feel the need to announce ourselves. Their quiet is a mirror in which our noise reflects back as insecurity. The non-poster occupies a peculiar temporal dimension, one that resists the social clock of immediacy. In psychological terms, this latency resembles what psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott once called transitional space, the inner field where experiences are neither performed nor consumed, but lived. The non-poster guards that space the way monks once guarded silence. To them, what is not shared is not wasted, it's fermented. It matures in the dark, gathering density until it becomes something more than memory. There is also an aesthetic instinct at play. They understand that beauty requires contrast, and that exposure kills magnetism. Everything continuously displayed becomes devalued. Scarcity preserves mystery. Their restraint is not moral, but artistic. They approach visibility the way a good writer approaches language, with precision, with refusal to say what doesn't add value. If everyone else is broadcasting static, their silence becomes signal. It's the same principle that made ancient poets veil truth in myth, to protect meaning from overexposure. Modern psychology often frames posting as self-expression, yet it's closer to self-projection, the curated shadow of identity that performs in our place. The non-poster's mind, in contrast, is free to remain inconsistent, ambiguous, and contradictory. They do not have to maintain narrative continuity between yesterday's mood and today's revelation. Their identity is elastic, able to grow in directions not yet legible to the feed. Carl Jung might say they are closer to the archetype of the self, the wholeness that contains both persona and shadow without the need to reconcile them in public view. The poster externalizes the process of becoming. The non-poster internalizes it. One lives through feedback, the other through reflection. This quiet existence, however, comes with its own solitude, a solitude that doesn't arise from lack of connection, but from witnessing the collective hypnosis of constant display. They move through the digital crowd like travelers through a carnival, amused, dazzled, but fundamentally elsewhere. They sense that visibility no longer equals intimacy, that attention no longer guarantees understanding. They experience a strange inversion of our time. The more one is seen, the less one is known. The non-poster psyche often possesses a specific kind of intelligence, an intuition for boundaries, a heightened sensitivity to overstimulation. Their silence is charged, like the pause before a symphony begins. When they do speak, their words land with disproportionate weight, precisely because they are not diluted by a constant output. This measuredness gives their communication a gravitational pull in an economy of endless chatter. They operate by an older logic, perhaps pre-digital, in which value is derived from presence. To understand them fully, one must remember that silence used to be a social virtue. Ancient Stoics considered speech something to be earned. Confucius praised those who understood without speaking. The modern condition reversed this hierarchy. Speech is default. Silence must be justified. To not post today feels like withholding oxygen from the collective narrative, an offense against the god of participation. In a system that converts every expression into data, refusal becomes the final form of authorship. There's also a tenderness hidden in their invisibility. They do not want to see themselves through the filtered gaze of others. They want to encounter life without premeditation. They take photos and never post them, as if to let the image remain alive in their private ecosystem of meaning. They collect moments the way naturalists collect specimens. They are the keepers of raw experience in an age obsessed with its documentation. Perhaps what truly defines them is a strange kind of faith, a belief that meaning doesn't vanish when unshared, that existence doesn't require witnesses to be real. They inhabit the unrecorded half of the human story, the half that resists translation into pixels and captions. In a future where every emotion may soon be analyzed by machine learning, their opacity will read as wisdom. Many would call them antisocial, but that they are actually post-social. They live in the future frontiers of human evolution. Non-posters often seem like they've opted out of some collective group project that everyone else is frantically trying to finish, while others are in a constant rush to prove existence through visibility, uploading evidence of doing life. The non-poster moves like someone who missed the memo, and upon discovering it later, decided it wasn't worth reading. There's an odd freedom in that kind of detachment. They've realized that the best way to win the attention economy is to stop participating in it. It's tempting to see them as mysterious, even superior, but that's not quite right. They are not digital monks renouncing worldly attachments. They still laugh at memes, stalk exes, and occasionally share music. What distinguishes them is a certain threshold of self-awareness, a humor about the absurdity of it all. They can see in real time the psychic gymnastics that go into curating authenticity. They know that posting for myself is one of the greatest collective lies of the modern age. They've simply chosen to skip the performance. Their role in the digital ecosystem is that of the amused witness. They observe online behavior with the same detached curiosity with which David Attenborough describes mating rituals of exotic birds. Here we see the influencer in her natural habitat, performing vulnerability for validation. Their silence is anthropological fieldwork. They can change opinions mid-sentence, have bad angles, eat ugly food, and still feel real. This gives them a weird stability. When you're not performing, you don't have to protect the performance. It's psychologically cheaper. In a way, they are what the internet was originally meant for. Lurking, exploring, learning, connecting quietly. The early web was full of anonymous explorers. Today's web is a marketplace of personas. The non-poster is a throwback to that original spirit. They inhabit the digital space like old philosophers wandering a library that everyone else turned into a nightclub. The refusal to post is a subtle joke on the system itself. I see your algorithm and raise you a black screen. Sometimes their friends beg them to post, if only once, just to prove they're alive. "You never post," is often said like an accusation, as though invisibility implies emotional negligence. There's humor too in their occasional attempts to post. Once a year they might upload something, an abstract photo, maybe a cryptic caption like "summer." Immediately their friends flood the comments as if spotting a rare celestial event. The post feels less like content and more like evidence that they still inhabit the species. And then, just as suddenly, they disappear again, reabsorbed into the deep web of private life. If you talk to them long enough, you realize their detachment hides a deeper longing for unmediated experience, for the texture of life before it was converted into proof. They sense that the future belongs not to those who share everything, but to those who can still hold something back, to those who know the difference between connection and exposure, between being known and being processed. Their silence is a prototype of a new kind of intelligence. They are practicing a skill most of us forgot. Perhaps history will remember them as the early conservationists of attention, the first to recognize that what's scarce now isn't information but mystery. They remind us that the self is not a performance to be updated, but a landscape to be explored privately. In a century obsessed with sharing, the most radical art form may turn out to be withholding.